Hi, Minesh here, and I'm really excited. We have two wonderful friends of mine. I've known them for a long time, decades and decades by now, and they've been in business for a long time as well. And you're going to learn some great information. So if you are one of those people who's looking to buy a home, refinance possibly, and you're looking for some information, we have the experts who have tremendous experience of helping thousands and thousands of families in the Metro Detroit area. So welcome, Burney, and welcome, Rosemarie. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's just give a quick background about you. So what should people know about you? And again, we'll keep it short because of time, because I know you have a lot of good information to share with us today.
Well, Burney and I have both been in the mortgage industry since 1990.
Wow.
And before that, Burney was a realtor.
Okay.
So we grew up in the mortgage industry before all the automation. So we have a lot of the information. We've also done a vast majority of different functions. So we know a little bit about the whole process.
Wow. So right from the part of getting somebody a loan in terms of processing and everything else, you've done all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In fact, we had our own brokerage for 10 years. So.
Okay, before the laws changed, right?
Right.
I know that. I have seen that happen because a lot of my clients around the country are realtors and loan officers. So let me ask you, I know in general, people are like, okay, when you buy a home, you should get pre-approved.
Yes.
And that's a quick question for most people is like, what does that mean? Tell me a little bit about it. Why should I?
The important part about getting pre-approved is a couple things. First of all, if you want your seller to take your offer seriously, you need to give them something to have confidence to know that you're going to be able to close the transaction.
Okay.
But it goes a little deeper because there's a different levels of pre-approvals depending on who you're working with. Now, there's some people that they can go as quickly as, typing it on the computer and go, bang, push a button, I'm approved. Well, that's a pre-approval.
Okay.
But that is not necessarily going to be the same kind of thing you're going to get when you close because you've got a lot of paperwork that justifies and documents all the information. You've got a lot of underwriting guidelines that determine what is qualifying income, what is qualifying assets. So if you would be liking to have more certainty about whether or not you're going to get approved, or if you want to do a lot of it, you're going to want to look for a pre-approval where you've got somebody who's the expert, who knows the different functions, who knows how to research underwriting guidelines, and especially somebody who collects the paperwork and reviews it up front. So they know, okay, this is not going to fly underwriting, or this is going to develop another question. Let's go ahead and get that paperwork. And so if you get all that paperwork up front and you're working with an expert that you're going to be working with throughout the process, you're going to cut down on a whole lot of stress after you purchase the house.
So basically less headaches for the person because they were prepared and they got the right advice in the beginning. Is that what you're really trying to tell me?
Exactly. Now, do you need to sell your house first?
Oftentimes, the layman doesn't understand how we do business.
Sure.
So their idea of income and the way we would calculate it could be two different things. So they put the information in the machine, but garbage in, garbage out. So that's where we come in. We're the filter. We make sure that information is correct, per
As
the
per our
documents.
guidelines, yeah.
As per the guidelines, and obviously it's a complicated process, and like you said, the layman may not understand the whole process, but you've been through this so many times with so many different types of conditions and different types of demographics and people that you can catch things faster just because you've done it before.
Well, because we've done it before and we know the guidelines. For example, we're going to ask you where you work, how long you've been there, and what type of income you have, and then we're going to look at your pay stubs. And if your pay stubs don't have any Social Security taxes coming out, you might be a 1099 employee, and then you might not qualify, whereas you would if you were a W-2 employee.
If it was the same income kind of situation.
Exactly.
Self-employed are particularly, self-employed people are particularly tough when it comes down to underwriting standards. They generally do not understand how we go about determining our income, and they'll usually put the wrong answers in. And just because you trick the computer into saying yes, that doesn't get you to the closing.
Sure, I totally understand that. Now, obviously, one of the questions people have is, hey, am I getting the best deal? How do you know that in the mortgage business, right?
Well, truth is, my advice is buyer beware.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's a lot of information out there. It's very confusing. And what people have to understand is that information is not there to educate them. The information is there as a lead generation tool. In fact, most of it that you'll find out there, like Lending Tree, Bank Rate, these kind of companies, they're not even in the mortgage business. They will not provide you a mortgage. What they're doing is providing leads to a lender. So the accuracy is not there. They're not there to give you accurate information. And in fact, what they're going to do is offer you the absolute best scenario.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be 2 or 3 points involved as well. So
Which is extra
these
cost.
Which is extra cost to the buyer.
Yeah. In fact, if you can pull up those documents I was showing.
Sure.
The first one there is a.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, well, we don't need the document then.
Let me try that again. Okay, well, maybe not, right? Okay.
Because it's not going to work. But anyway, what I had brought in was if you actually go to the website, what you're going to find is there's a qualifier on there.
Okay.
There's a disclosure, and most people it ain't going to jump out in your face. You have to actually go look for that.
Wow.
And that's where it's going to tell you that, you have an ideal loan amount, your credit is perfect.
You've got 50% down.
Yeah.
You've got a debt ratio very low.
And you're paying 2.5 points.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
And a point is a lot more than people think it is because obviously
it depends. A point is 1% of the mortgage.
Exactly.
So, you might be willing to pay a point on a $50,000 loan, whereas a $500,000 loan is going to cost you a lot of money.
Wow.
So I had brought in an example of like a loan estimate.
Sure.
Where the rate was 3 3/4, which was a good rate at the time.
But it was adjustable.
And there was 2 points assigned. So this is a $400,000 loan. That person was going to pay $8,000 for that rate. Now,
and they don't even break even until 5 years, so it might not even be a good idea.
And on top of that, and the refis, a lot of times what they're doing is they're actually rolling that into the mortgage.
Correct, very common.
So now you're going to pay $8,000, and then you're going to pay 30 years worth of interest on it on top. It's not a good deal. You might be out of that house before you ever have a chance to break even.
That's crazy, isn't it? So we buyer beware, right? You said that, and I think that's a good point that you're mentioning to me.
And it's important to find somebody that you can trust.
Correct.
Personal referrals are great.
And that's why somebody who has had a good experience, somebody who has obviously gone through the process.
Professional referrals are another
professional
thing.
referrals. So obviously, and that's really what the business is all about. So the last question which I have is obviously there are a number of lenders out there, right? And everybody's going to claim to be the best, the greatest customer service. I mean, come on. I mean, who's going to say, we are terrible at customer service. We don't get the loan closed on time. We charge you more money at closing. Nobody says that, right? They will all say they are going to do the best. So how do you know? How do you compare?
Well, there's basically, in a macro perspective, there's 2 kinds of lenders.
Okay.
Now, there are lenders that are heavily advertised based.
Sure.
And they're digital. They're on the TV. They're on the radio. They do little circuses and give kids.
They get your attention.
They get your attention, and they bring in business through the advertising.
Correct.
Now, generally, those companies, and everybody's a little different, of course, but generally, those kind of companies hire different people for compartmentalized roles, and they specialize in their particular role. So the first person you're going to talk to is a salesman, and that salesman's going to be friendly and make you feel fantastic because that's what salespeople do, right?
Job, yes.
Yeah, you want to apply for a mortgage? Sure, let me get some information first. Okay, give me your name. Before you know it, you filled out an application and you still don't have your questions answered. And the reason is because those people focus on sales.
Correct.
They have well-crafted scripts that they can speak without skipping a beat.
Yes.
And it's all designed to get it on paper because down the line are the people who will give you that information. So you go from one person who they call a loan officer to another person to another person. One person collects the documents. One person, sends it to another department to order the documents, and everything goes down the line. And in those kind of scenarios, what they do is they they have the underwriter, the final decision maker, come back and take a look at the application and let them know if we need to restructure it, if we can't do it, what kind of documentation is going to need. And in those kind of situations, they are like an assembly line process. And people who really thrive on internet, uploading stuff, they would prefer frequently asked questions. And, they can do it at 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? They don't want to be, they don't really need to talk to a lot of people. They don't really need a lot of explanation. They don't need anybody to hold their hand. Those kind of companies, those are efficient. Those are quick. You don't really care about who you're talking to, and you're going for it. And then there's another group of companies that are all more relationship-based. Those are the people. They generally have people that are more experienced in the loan officer position. They have people like he and I who've been here before the computer says whether or not you're approved. And so those pre-approvals, for example, might be more front-loaded. They're going to ask more questions. I mean, I've had, I don't know how many people tell me, nobody's asked me that before. I'm like, that's because they don't know to ask you that. I mean, somebody's going to ask you that down the line, but let's get it taken care of up front. So in those kind of situations, when you're dealing with people who have personal relationships, I personally think you're going to get better service overall if you've gotten that lead from, if you got that source from a referral, because we have to answer to people. When you get referred by a realtor, that realtor has experience with that person.
Correct.
And that realtor is counting on that person to do what they need to do so everybody gets paid and the customers are happy. So you have a lot more attention. Sometimes there's more availability, more customer service, more explanation. A lot of times it's front-loaded, get all the paperwork in. Okay, you've got this. All right, all I'm going to need is a homeowner's insurance policy and a canceled earnest money deposit check. You go buy your house. And then when they find a house, they're all excited. They can think of things like who's going to have what room and how's the furniture going to go, rather than give me another W-2.
Yes. And I think it's so true. And before wrapping it up, here is the part that is important. I think people have an aversion to being sold, right?
To being what?
To being sold. It's my Indian accent, Rosemary. What can I say? People have an aversion of being sold, and internet is using it to its advantage. The people who are using internet to get clients, generate leads, they are using it to their advantage because people feel, oh, I don't have to talk to anybody and I get all the information. Well, obviously, you are telling me, and I'm sure it's true in most of the cases, that people who are talking to you through the internet may not have the best interest or a process that is going to be the best for you. Whereas if they are referred, they know somebody who has already gone through the process, they know people professionally in the community that they're going to be dealing with, then there is a lot more at stake for you. And hence the relationships to you are important enough that you'll spend the time to get to know them, help their situation, so they can turn around and give you the benefit of the word of the mouth. Is that what it is, pretty much what you're trying to say?
There's really no accountability if you're getting your business offline.
I totally understand.
Whereas if you're working referrals, then you're accountable to the person that brought you that referral, and therefore, like I say, you're going to do a better job.
I agree. Let people know how to contact you. So just give your contact information. How can they get off Burney and Rosemarie here?
Well, they can reach me on my cell phone at area code 586-419-3918. Or Burney's cell phone is 586-484-5058. And we both have pages on Facebook.
Very good. So Burney and Rosemarie, you've been great friends. You've invited me to speak and stuff, so I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for being here. I enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much.
Us.
You're welcome.